Hi, I'm Beryl, and today's episode has a special theme that's a little different from episodes of the past. If you watch this show, you know that food and memory are definitely connected. In today's episode, I've asked you all to tell us about a dish that reminds you of somebody who's since passed away, and how that dish helps keep their memory alive. We have 5 very special dishes. All of the recipes are going to be in the description. I'm really excited for this video to happen.
My name is Carla. I was born in Ecuador and currently live in the state of Georgia in the United States. The dish that I am sharing with you today is called seco de pollo. It is a traditional and very common meal in Ecuador, and it's a meal that my parents made often. They have both since passed away. My mother's name is Guadalupe and my dad's name is Carlos. When I was a little girl, I always asked my mom who taught her to cook, and she would always tell me who taught her how to cook was life. I never understood what that meant. My mom passed away when I was 18 years old, shortly after the birth of my first daughter. Unfortunately, she didn't get to teach me how to cook. I did have to mostly figure it out on my own. My mom taught me and my brothers a love for cooking, for baking, for art. She taught us to be hard workers and resilient, and to always keep moving forward and never give up despite our challenges. I love this dish because, you know, apart from the fact that it is delicious, you know, I take a bite and it's like in Ratatouille when the critic takes the bite of Ratatouille and it transports him to his childhood. It's the same feeling for me. They say that a person lives on in the heart of those whose lives they've touched. My mom touched so many lives. And knowing that other people in the world and places that she's never been or seen and people that she's never met might try this recipe, honestly, it blows my mind. But it also brings me the hope that she and my dad, they will continue to live on, even though they've passed away.
This dish smells absolutely amazing, and I would say that it was rather simple to make. Ooh, the chicken is just, I'm eating the chicken off the bone with a spoon. Although no one's surprised that I'm using a spoon, probably. Oh my god. Wow, that's really nice. All on the rice too. I think it was really interesting when Carla was talking about her mom's recipe that she never really got the recipe and had to work her way back to it. I can totally empathize with that feeling she had when she tasted it and it was finally right. I mean, what a joy that must have been. This dish definitely feels like something that tastes like home. It tastes like beautiful home cooking, if you know what I mean. Something that just like, you can tell that there's love in it. I mean, I made mine with love, so I imagine that Guadalupe made hers with love as well. I feel really privileged that I get to cook this, and I want to say thank you, Carla, for sharing your mother's recipe, and thank you to Carla's dad for helping her get, partly there. Definitely recommend making this. The recipe is in the description. Thank you, Carla.
Hi, my name's Alaina. I am currently living in Wichita, Kansas, but I'm originally from New Orleans, Louisiana, and today the dish that I will be talking about is sauce piquant. It's special to me because it reminds me of my papa who passed away almost 2 years ago, and it seemed like an almost weekly ritual that we had that he would call me, see if I was home, and not even 10 minutes later I would have this huge spread of sauce piquant and boil in the bag rice and green beans with potatoes. My papa Charlie was from Natchitoches, Louisiana, and he served in the military for a few years before he met and married my mama Mary. He was a super family-oriented man. He was incredibly hardworking, and he loved all of us unconditionally. And I've truly never seen a man so dedicated to his family like my papa was to us. He was super proud to be Native American and Cajun, and he showed that through his cooking. Something that I miss a lot about my papa is just the fact that he always thought that I could do and be more than I even thought I could be, and I mean that in like the best way. If I told him like, Grandpa, I want to be an astronaut, he would be like, baby, you're gonna be an astronaut, I know you will. So I absolutely miss that about him, that he always thought we could do and be so much more than even we thought we could be. Sauce piquant is a primarily Creole dish, meaning it's a mix of French, Spanish, and African cuisine. And it's definitely not the prettiest looking dish, but the taste is absolutely what brings me back to it. There's nothing like it. For me, food, love, and memory are such a quintessential part of my family, and there was always a big spread of food around when my family was together. From gumbo and jambalaya to meat pies and dirty rice, the food always brought more joy, more love, and constant memories. I feel humble knowing that people around the world could potentially try this dish. It means so much to me and my family. We miss our papa so much, and to know that we're introducing this to y'all almost 2 years to his passing is almost like he's saying that he's still here and that he loves us. So I hope y'all enjoy, and thanks.
This dish is definitely a labor of love. If there was a way for Alaina's papa to really make sure his family knew that he loved them, I understand why sauce piquant was a very good way to do it. I mean, the dish is beautiful. It was so many steps. I also think this might have been my first time cooking Cajun food. I don't know if this is a good or bad thing to say. I think it's a good thing. It's like the best tomato soup I've ever had in my life. It's super tomatoey, like spicy in the back, really creamy from the roux. Whoa. Oh my God. I'm like feeling things right now. What Alaina said about her papa just truly believing in her, that's just like the most amazing thing to have. Somebody who really believes in you like that. Very, very lucky, Alaina. For all of the dishes that I am cooking for this episode, I'm feeling like a little bit of nervousness because I feel a little bit more responsible for doing right by them. So I've really tried to be true to the recipes, to not like mess around too much with them. And I just feel really privileged to have this experience and to be able to hear everybody's stories and learn about all of your families and your histories and the foods that make up your families and your histories. This episode is just something that is way more special than I ever even imagined that it could be. There were a couple of things in making this, like cooking the chicken in that whole stick of butter. That was naughty, Papa, but I really enjoyed that. The chicken looked crispy and delicious. I could not believe how full my huge Le Creuset pot was, like spilling over, but it worked out. I mean, the recipe that you'll see in the description, it's for like, this will definitely be feeding probably 5 people. I'm having my neighbors over to eat the rest of this because it was a big recipe. I will include some footage from our dinner.
Plate is totally
clean
white.
plate club.
They were gifted to us.
Yum.
And I think it'd be really cool if any of you end up making any of these recipes and sharing them with your families. Like, let all of us know in the comments. Thank you, Alaina, and thank you to your papa for giving us this beautiful dish.
Hi Beryl, my name is Noeris. I am from Miami, Florida, and my family is originally from Venezuela. And the dish that reminds me most of my grandpa, who passed away 10 years ago, is called Funche. Funche is a poor man's dish in Venezuela. It's basically polenta left at room temperature so it hardens up a bit, and it's served as slices. And you could add anything to it. My grandpa was a very loving man. And one of the things he would do was make funche. My mom tells me that when they were growing up, it was the Sunday morning breakfast. And it was very much like my grandpa because it's a simple dish. It's a very generous dish. And my grandpa was just that. He was very generous. The doors to his house were always open. That was just the way he was. He was a pastor by calling, but I think it was also in his nature to just love people. In the last days, when he was in the ICU, I remember the ICU waiting room, and every single face I saw in that room was there to visit my grandpa. He loved people, so people loved him back. Something that I love about food and memories is this. This was my grandpa's dish, you know. Thinking that people are gonna make this dish around the world is mind-boggling. I think my grandpa would be mind-blown as well. I wanted to share my love of my culture's cuisine, but there's no better episode that I would have wanted to be part of than this one. Thank you. I hope you enjoy.
I have my slice of funche, aka the polenta pie of my dreams. This looks so cool. I love polenta, and I just never really thought about doing a cake with all these bits in it. Yeah. Wow, that's like really flavorful. I'm honestly kind of surprised. The instructions for this recipe were like, chop all these things, make all these little pieces, immediately, everything in the pot, just all of it at once. And I was reading it just being like, wait, isn't there like another step? No. Everything just goes into the pot. Another one-pot dish, only you get this really cool cake. Money's getting to learn about your grandfather was so special. He seemed like such a beautiful human. I'm so excited that I get to cook this dish, and I totally understand this idea, like this polenta cake is something that can feed a group really easily. And we all talk about all the time how food is just such a great extension of showing how we care about people. And I can totally see how cooking this big polenta cake can be an expression of love. It tastes really good. When Maris was talking about her grandfather's last days and how so many people came to the ICU to be there for him and for their family, that's just such a beautiful thing to be the type of person who can leave a mark on the world that, people will miss. One of the things that I've definitely learned from doing this show and hearing all of your stories in every episode I've ever done is how important it is to let people know how you feel about them, because little tiny things can leave a huge mark, such as making a dish, and that can be something that we all carry with us for many, many years and hold as this beautiful, special memory. And it's easy to just eat a dish and think man, that's really good. But it's such a little thing to tell that person how much it means and how much you like it. And I think that stuff really goes a long way. Maybe next time someone cooks a meal for you, you can tell them how much you appreciate it. Something that I'm trying to bring into 2023 is when someone does something for me that I really appreciate, I want to make sure I let them know, whether it is, cooking me a nice meal or, doing something else.
My name is Hannah. I'm from the US and I currently live in Louisville, Kentucky. The recipe that I'm going to be sharing with you today is thumbprint cookies with jelly on the inside. This recipe reminds me of my grandma Shirley. She passed away in 2006 when I was 10 years old. This recipe reminds me of her because she was an incredible cook and baker, and I grew up with a lot of addiction in my family, and my grandmother raised me for the first 3 years of my life. And once I moved out back in with my parents, there wasn't a lot of stability involved in my life. So I would still see her on the weekend, and this was one of those things where whenever I saw her, we would always make these together. She was a rock that at that time in my life, I had no one to rely on. And my grandma was my parent. And now that she's gone on, I'm starting to forget things about her, the smell of her perfume, what her face looked like. But when I think about these cookies, I think about her, and I think about all the time that we spend together, and that's really special to me. It makes me really, really happy to know that someone else is going to be able to try this dish. I think having something so simple, it's really beautiful, because I think it means that more and more people will be able to try this and hopefully connect with it. So it'll be interesting to send this dish off.
We have Grandma Shirley's Thumbprint Cookies, and this is the second time in my life that I have made cookies. So I'm proud of them. Oh my god, they're good! Oh. The last time I did like a shortbread thing was when I made my lemon bars in my holiday episode. It did not go very well. I've learned a lot of lessons. These are so soft, crumbly, like they like melt in your mouth. I'm using lingonberry jam because that's the jam that I have in my house, and I actually really like lingonberry jam because it's not that sweet. I'm not sure if like most thumbprint cookies are made with this type of jam, but if you have it, it tastes really good. I think that it's really sweet that here in New York City, I was able to make the same cookies that Hannah and her grandmother Shirley made together, and that, you know, Hannah, that you're still making today. And all of these dishes, it just feels so nice to be able to share them and experience them in my own way with you guys. And just to say, for my second time making cookies, they're really good. So if you feel intimidated by baking, Grandma Shirley's Thumbprint Cookies are probably going to be a surefire win for you. I'm going to share the rest of these with my neighbors so that everybody can try them. The recipe, do not forget, is in the description if you want to try them yourself.
My name is Dalitza, and I am from Puerto Rico, but I currently live in Florida. The dish that I want to share with you today is Bistec Encebollado, which is one of my favorite things that my grandma used to make me before she passed away in February of 2019. Abuela Ching, as we called her, was just an immaculate housewife and mother and cook. She was silly and she was funny, and she loved it when I used to scream "Abuela" after a really long time apart, and she was just always really appreciative of how excited I was to see her. She took care of us when we were kids all the way into high school. She always cooked by eye. She never measured anything. She never wrote down any recipes. And when she started losing her sight, she just cooked by feel. And it just always turned out perfect anyway. It was remarkable. A lot of her recipes are now lost to time because, again, she never wrote anything down, but Bistec was one of those things that we were able to reverse engineer because it's an easy enough recipe. After she passed, I tried to make Bistec on my own, and the very first time that it tasted really good and I got it right and where it tasted just like hers, I took that first bite and I just cried because it was like she was there again and she was cooking for me again. And it was just so amazing how food can bring back those that have been gone. And now every time that I cook it, I use that very long simmering time to commune with my memories of her. And I just remember little things very fondly, and I feel like I'm honoring her legacy. I think cooking for me has been a great way of processing my grief and keeping her alive in my life every time that we sit down to eat it.
This is a dish where I honestly have no idea what this could possibly taste like. I did not even know that this cut of meat was a cut of meat. The minute steak. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. Very thin though. Boiling it with the vinegar and oil, also very interesting. Whoa. It's kind of like the onions really are giving me French onion soup vibes. That really soft, beefy flavor in the onions. It's like sweet and savory. And the steak is super flavorful, kind of dry. It's like not chewy at all, just kind of like breaks apart really easily. This is a very surprising dish for me. this used a technique of cooking that I don't honestly even really understand. Like, I don't think I've ever fried meat with vinegar. Man, these onions are crazy good though. When Dalitza was talking about using the time while she's cooking this dish to really think about her grandmother and to reflect on her, I just thought that was so beautiful. And I don't know, I guess just like very real and something that I can totally understand, that you have somebody who means a lot to you, and when you take this time when you're cooking something that reminds you of them, like it's a really beautiful and I think like a painful thing sometimes to sit back and like really think about them and lean into that feeling of them not being there, but then like having a dish that so reminds you of them to kind of bring them back again. Ugh, man. I think what's most interesting to me about this dish, honestly, is that like it tastes really like beef. Like it's got that beefy flavor. And the broth that ended up being made was like the most concentrated beef stock flavor ever. And it all came out of these thin little steaks. It's a very interesting dish, very interesting. And if you're somebody who likes beef, it's definitely worth exploring because it's got like all these new flavors and textures, but it's also still beef and onions, so it's nothing like renegade as far as ingredients go. I want to say thank you, and I think that I speak for everybody who watched this video today as well in saying thank you to all of you who shared your stories today about yourself and about your loved ones. This episode was really special, and like I feel just bursting with love for all of you. And I hope that some of you will give some of these dishes a try as well, and that you can experience some of the joy that I got to experience cooking them all. I think I'm just feeling like a little bit emotional, so I'm sending a big hug. I love all of you guys, and I will see you next week.